They didn't even spell my last name right on the meeting invite. That's when I should have known. But I was too tired to care. 3 weeks of 2 a.m. revisions, a compliance clause battle with legal, and back-channeling with a client whose procurement officer couldn't tell the difference between a clause and a clause condition. I had 3 Google Docs open, one eye twitching from too much screen time, and my cat literally puked on my keyboard the night before the final draft was due. I still made the deadline. The pitch that landed them the $10 million contract. It was mine. I built it from a blank screen. Section headers, tone guidance, market fit strategy, product structure, every line. I'd even added a warm closing paragraph that legal flagged at first, until I explained that humans still sign contracts, not robots. I made it sing without sounding desperate. That's how we hooked them. So when they called an emergency review meeting that morning, 15 minutes before final delivery, and told me to let the senior team finalize the packaging, I should have walked. But I didn't. I handed it over. I watched 3 men skim my work like it was theirs and nod approvingly like they'd just whipped it up over a round of golf. I bit my tongue. Again. The deck was submitted to the client 2 hours later. I waited. Then I opened the shared folder. Final shirt pitch, client 10 approved.pdf. Scrolled to the authorship slide. My name wasn't there. Not in the contributors section. Not in the appendix. Not in the thank you list at the end. But there, in bold blue font, were the names of 3 men who hadn't written a single word past "Dear Client." I froze. Then I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they'd sent the wrong version. Maybe there'd been a formatting error or some kind of weird syncing issue. I refreshed. I downloaded the file. I even checked the version history in Docs, hoping for some proof of my fingerprints. Nothing. So I asked, quietly, in the open Slack channel. Just a simple message. Hey, noticed the final deck doesn't include my name. Can someone clarify? 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Finally, one of them, Mark, posted a smiling emoji and replied, "We gave you credit, spiritually." No one else said a word. That emoji was the closest I got to acknowledgement after 3 weeks of bleeding into a project they couldn't have landed without me. Spiritually. Like I was some kind of ghost consultant who drifted in with the wisdom of the ancients and then evaporated when the job was done. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just stared at my screen and let the silence settle. And hey, if you've been here, watching someone take your work, your voice, your damn soul, and nod like they built it, you know how it feels. If this story hits, go ahead and like the video. It tells the algorithm we're not invisible. And if you're one of the 97% who hasn't hit that subscribe button, it helps the team bring more of these stories to life. Quiet wins still need loud allies. Now back to it. I didn't say another word in that Slack thread. I just closed my laptop, printed one thing, the original email I'd sent to the client with the pitch attached, with metadata intact, and walked over to the printer like it was any other day. I took the page, folded it twice, and slipped it into my tote bag next to my lunch I never touched. Then I opened my internal dashboard, revoked my own credentials, and quietly deactivated access to every folder I had contributed to. Not just the pitch. All of it. I passed HR on the way out. She blinked at me like I was early for a dentist appointment. "You're not staying for the post-mortem?" I smiled, calm and steady. Nope. Do you want to file a concern about authorship or? I'll let the work speak. I pushed the door open, stepped into the parking lot, and drove home in silence. That night, I sat on my porch, opened my personal archive, and found the email. The real one. The one with my name in the header, the timestamp, the embedded watermark I always included in outbound drafts. Just in case. I opened the file. And for the first time all week, I smiled. They didn't even notice I was gone until someone tried to ping me in a thread and got a user not found error. That morning, I brewed my coffee the same as always. Dark roast, splash of oat milk, no sugar, but something in my chest felt hollowed, like a room stripped of furniture. I didn't feel rage, not the loud kind. What I felt was quieter, sharper, like a scalpel left out in the cold. I knew what I was going to do the second I woke up. First, I pulled up the original email, the one I'd sent to the client's external contact. Direct, clean, legally pre-approved, time-stamped, with my digital watermark subtly embedded in the document footer, same as always. A little line of code, invisible to the eye unless you knew where to look. It wasn't even fancy. Just a metadata injection from a script I wrote after a partner once tried to scrub my name off an internal memo. I learned. This time, I wasn't giving anyone a second shot. I printed it. Just one page, just the email header and the timestamp, with the file attachment name clearly visible. The same name, legal approved, the same one the client responded to with, "We're impressed. Let's move forward with this version." I folded it carefully, slipped it into a manila folder I kept in my drawer, and tucked that folder into the inside pocket of my laptop bag. Next, access purge. I opened my admin dashboard, revoked my credentials on shared folders, removed myself from client channels, pulled access from every Google Sheet, slides deck, and draft doc I had contributed to for the pitch. Then I opened our project management tool and left a single note in the task labeled Final Authorship Confirmation. Removed for accuracy. No sign-off. No initials. Just that. By the time IT noticed what I'd done, I'd already shut down my laptop. Not logged out, shut down, cold and clean. I didn't write a goodbye email. I didn't post a Slack farewell. I wasn't about to pretend this was a fond departure or that we'd keep in touch. They wanted my voice, but not my name. Now they had neither. When I walked out, the sky was overcast and flat. The kind of weather that makes everything feel like a waiting room. I passed 3 people in the hall, all too glued to their screens to look up. I don't think a single one of them realized it would be the last time they saw me walk that hallway. I paused at the HR desk. Tina looked up, blinking like she'd just come out of a nap. "Hey, are you heading out early?" "No, for good." She sat up straighter. "Wait, are you resigning? We didn't get a letter or anything." "I'm not writing one." There was an awkward silence while she fumbled through a folder labeled Voluntary Exits. "You know," she said carefully, "if this is about the authorship issue, there's an internal process for appeal. You can flag it with the recognition committee." "I'll let the work speak," I said, without blinking. She opened her mouth like she was about to explain what that meant, and then stopped. I walked out before she could try. Later that night, I forwarded the original email, complete with headers, timestamp, and watermark, to a personal archive I kept separate from my inbox. It was encrypted, backed up to a private cloud, and indexed by date and project. That archive was my insurance, not just for situations like this, for everything, every version I'd ever written, every deal I'd ever shaped. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with it, but I knew I wasn't done, not by a long shot. The envelope came sandwiched between a Netflix DVD refund check and a Trader Joe's coupon booklet. I almost tossed it, assuming it was junk mail or some pointless legal notice about updated privacy policies. But the return address said Superior Court of California, and the case ID on the top right corner made my stomach tighten like a fist. I opened it slowly, already sensing that something irreversible was on the other side. I wasn't being sued. I was being named, a witness, specifically a material witness in a civil action involving breach of contract, misrepresentation, and failure to honor negotiated protective clauses. Plaintiff, the client, defendant, my former employer. And me? I was the string between them, the ghost in the machine, the quiet author of the clauses now in dispute. It didn't say much, just that my name had surfaced in discovery, and I was expected to preserve any communications or materials relevant to the contract negotiation process. My testimony could be requested pending evidentiary hearings. I reread the first page, then the second. Then I sat perfectly still for maybe 5 minutes, long enough for my tea to go cold in my hand. Outside, someone's lawnmower buzzed. Inside, the world shifted a few degrees sideways. I opened my laptop. The email was still there, untouched, tucked into the archive folder I hadn't touched since forwarding it to myself. My cursor hovered over it. For a second, just a second, I thought about deleting it, about walking away entirely. I didn't work there anymore. I wasn't paid to fight their battles. This wasn't my lawsuit. Let them bleed each other dry over who sent what and when. But then I remembered Clause 4B, the one I wrote by hand in the margin during a 1 a.m. compliance meeting, after the client's VP had flagged a vendor-side risk that legal kept brushing off, the clause that protected the client in case of performance failures, the one I argued for, fought for, got approved with language that made the project accountable without painting us into a corner. And then, according to the court notice, the clause that mysteriously disappeared in the version the company filed. They'd cut it. After all that, they'd pulled the most client-protective piece of the whole deal. Not just unethical, stupid. Because the client's procurement team didn't play games. If they were suing, they had receipts. Which meant someone, somewhere, had asked, "Who sent the original version?" I clicked the email, and there it was. My name, my subject line, my attachment, dated 3 hours before the company's final sendout, watermarked in the footer, just like I always did. Not flashy, not obvious, just proof. I didn't smile right away. It came slow, controlled, like exhaling after holding your breath at the edge of a cliff. This wasn't revenge. This was documentation. I flagged the email, backed it up to 3 places, re-verified the chain of custody. I even ran the file through my old forensic script to make sure nothing had been tampered with. Then I encrypted the archive under a new password and closed the laptop. By the time the subpoena arrived, I was ready. Not eager, not angry, just ready. It was 12:47 a.m. on a Thursday when I hit send. I remember the timestamp because the email system was lagging, and I sat there for a good 5 seconds, watching the spinning wheel, half daring it to crash. The final pitch file was attached. Not a draft, not a preview. The file, the one legal had finally approved after 14 back and forths and 2 unnecessary quick sync calls, where 3 men repeated each other in different tones of voice. I remember the moment because it didn't feel triumphant. It felt surgical, like stitching up a wound. Quiet, focused, one precise cut and done. Subject, final, client proposal for review. I addressed it to the lead procurement contact on the client side, Maria Gerson, and CC'd our internal point of contact. Then, right before hitting send, I added one more address to the BCC line, alias.revision@archiveoprotonmail.com, my personal backup alias. I created it years ago when a partner accidentally deleted a key memo and then gaslit me into thinking I never sent it. Since then, I copied myself on anything important. Not all emails, just the ones that mattered. The ones with language I knew would be touched, twisted, or conveniently reworded when someone smelled credit on the horizon. This pitch? It mattered. Especially Clause 4B, the deal breaker. I still remember the wording. I wrote it 3 different ways before landing on the right tone. It had to be ironclad but diplomatic, protective but not aggressive. The clause was a performance safeguard that required quarterly check-ins, real-time metric transparency, and vendor accountability thresholds the client had insisted on from day one. Legal hated it, but I made it work. And more than that, Maria, the client, trusted it. She told me on the phone, if that clause isn't in the final version, we can't move forward. It was in there. Section 4B, bolded, highlighted in the summary index. I made sure of it. So imagine my expression when I saw the final contract the company filed, attached to a press release I wasn't even copied on, and Clause 4B was gone. Not moved, not rewritten, gone. They cut it after the client signed the pitch, after the goodwill was locked, after they took the credit and buried the protection. I wasn't surprised. Not really, because I'd already seen the signs, the rushed edits, the urgent push to finalize formatting, the insistence on a cohesive brand voice, which, translated from their mouths, meant delete anything that looks like a woman wrote it. I wasn't new, I just hadn't flinched fast enough. But what they didn't know, what they never thought to ask, was that my version, the real version, was already time-stamped and backed up in an account they had no access to, watermarked with my hidden footer signature, indexed with metadata they couldn't forge, even if they tried. Because I don't just write clean copy, I write it like a coder, layered, versioned, immutable. So when I opened the archived email weeks later and saw that attachment, the one with Clause 4B intact, I didn't feel fury. I felt satisfaction. Because while they played power games, I played timestamps. And mine always came first. They thought I'd stay silent, that I'd disappear like a deleted draft. The internal email thread, the one later subpoenaed, was titled Metadata Mitigation Urgent. I wasn't supposed to see it. But when you know how to bury your authorship in 6 layers of digital ink, you also know how to follow the trails others leave in a panic. The first message came from Doug, Director of Strategic Partnerships, which in this case meant guy who went golfing with Maria once and called that a relationship. Client is contesting authenticity of final proposal doc. Claims version sent by our team does not match original. Anyone confirm what went out? 3 minutes later, Scott, Director of Operations, replied. Can we trace the original send from our end? Pull logs? Rebuild headers? Then came the kicker. Nope, said an IT specialist named Ron. Client servers are private. Their legal team already preserved the original message headers. We can't override what's in their inbox. The directors spiraled. I watched it happen through forwarded fragments and accidental leaks from an admin I used to buy lunch for on Fridays. The tone shifted from mild concern to full-blown scramble. They tried drafting a statement about version misalignment due to last-minute edits. They floated the idea of blaming an intern. At one point, Doug typed, "She'll never show up. She doesn't want drama." I almost laughed when I read that line. Not because it was wrong, because it was exactly why I would show up. I didn't want drama. I wanted precision. I wanted the truth spoken out loud in a room where the carpet didn't muffle every injustice with HR's branded throw pillows. By the time they speculated whether I'd respond to a court summons, I already had. Subpoena arrived Monday. Response submitted Tuesday. Metadata logs uploaded in triplicate to a secure server. My lawyer, a woman I went to grad school with who now specialized in IP litigation, quietly filed the declaration of authorship, complete with chain of custody affidavits. The directors had assumptions. I had records. They treated my exit like a ghosting, as if silence meant weakness, as if walking away wasn't the first step in laying a tripwire. They were scrambling to fabricate a story I didn't need to write. Mine was already embedded in every version control system, every time-stamped clause, every signature hash buried in the PDF they thought was theirs. I wasn't angry. I was calibrated. Their panic didn't excite me. It confirmed what I already knew. They didn't know how to build, only how to present. And the moment someone asked them to prove authorship, all they could do was refresh their inbox and pray their lies came with attachments. The courtroom smelled like paper and nerves. Not fear, exactly. More like stale confidence cracking under fluorescent light. I took a seat in the back row, third pew from the left, behind a row of empty chairs and one older man reading a Wall Street Journal like it was Sunday Mass. My suit was plain, black, no jewelry, no laptop, just a leather portfolio clutched loosely in one hand, the same one I used for interviews years ago, back when I still believed titles meant credit. No one noticed me. They weren't supposed to. At the front of the room sat 3 men in matching navy suits, shifting in their chairs like kids waiting for the principal to call their name. Doug, Scott, and Greg, the holy trinity of corporate repackaging, whispering among themselves while their counsel rifled through a stack of documents like he'd just lost his sermon notes. Across the aisle, the client's legal team. 4 attorneys, 1 junior associate, and Maria, my Maria, seated silently at the end of the row, her face unreadable. She didn't look for me. She didn't need to. She knew I'd be there. Case number 48 CV 11729, the clerk called out. Gerson and Partners versus Altian Technologies, Inc. The judge entered. Everyone stood. I didn't blink. Opening arguments will begin shortly, the judge said. But first, we'll review evidentiary submissions presented by the plaintiff. The lead attorney for the client stood, a tall woman in a charcoal suit with a voice like ice over steel. She didn't waste time. She walked straight to the monitor set up near the witness box and clicked a button on her laptop. On screen, the courtroom projector displayed an email. Subject: Final. Client proposal for review. From Hot My Name to maria.gersongersonpartners.com. CC internalcontactoaltian.com by CC, redacted. Timestamp 12:47 a.m., June 6th. Attached file. Altian proposal, Gerson, final, V3B PDF. A murmur rippled through the room. The attorney didn't pause. This version of the proposal, she said, turning to the judge, was received by our client 3 hours before the version submitted to the contract registrar by Altian Technologies. She clicked again. A second email appeared. Subject: Final, official proposal submission from greg.michaelsaltian.com to maria.gersongersonpartners.com. Timestamp 3:58 a.m., June 6th. Attached file, Altian proposal, Gerson, final, V4, PDF. This second version, she said, omits Clause 4B, a compliance requirement negotiated over multiple revisions and explicitly requested by our client. Greg shifted hard in his chair. Scott muttered something under his breath. The attorney continued. Our client signed based on the first version, the version authored and submitted by my full name, who is present in the courtroom today. And then, for the first time, the judge turned. He squinted through his glasses, looked down at the printed email, then back up at the gallery, and said, "Wait, she's here?" The air turned heavy. All three directors whipped their heads around. Maria looked too, but not in surprise, in recognition. I didn't move, just nodded, once. The opposing counsel stammered something about unauthorized communication. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. He turned to me again. "You're the author of this document?" "Yes, Your Honor." His gaze lingered, not unkind, just assessing, like he was recalibrating the story mid-chapter. Then he turned back to the plaintiff's counsel. "Proceed." I leaned back. The seat creaked, and for the first time in a month, I felt it. Not vindication, not revenge, just gravity shifting, like the center of the room had moved, and it moved toward me. The words weren't loud, but they might as well have echoed off every wall in that courtroom. "Wait, you're her?" The judge didn't say it like a question that needed answering. It was more like a realization catching up to him mid-thought. His voice carried just enough curiosity to sting the air, like he was trying to reconcile the silent figure in the back row with the thread now unraveling every argument in front of him. The directors turned in unison. Not a single one of them blinked. Doug's face slackened first, like he'd just remembered something inconvenient, like the fire drill you forgot was real. Scott's eyes flicked down to the table, scanning the printouts like maybe, somehow, I wouldn't be there. Greg just gawked, jaw slightly open. He looked exactly the way I remembered him in meetings, like someone halfway through stealing a cookie who just got caught on security cam. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just met their eyes, one by one, and gave a single, controlled nod. That was enough. That one gesture erased every spiritually they ever mumbled over my work. Every time they'd laughed while handing me coffee-stained feedback with a wink. Every time they'd said, "It's just formatting," or "We need a consistent voice." That nod rewrote the room. The judge leaned back slowly, like he was reconsidering half the folder in front of him. His hands folded across his chest, and he looked toward the defense table, toward the men who had listed themselves as authors, strategists, lead architects. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Because now every person in that courtroom knew the truth. The voice that built the 10-memo deal wasn't seated at the defense table. She'd been sitting unnoticed behind them, wrapped in black fabric and quiet restraint, until the words on the screen pulled her into view. The opposing counsel shuffled papers, like that could change gravity. But it was too late. I felt it. The shift. Like the floor beneath them had loosened its bolts, while mine had just settled into place. For months I'd been a ghost in their systems, a placeholder in their workflows, the her people referenced vaguely when talking about that version or those edits. But now there was no more abstraction, no more plausible deniability. I was not a whisper. I was not a footnote. I was her. And from that moment forward, they weren't telling the story anymore. They were the story. I watched Greg glance nervously at the projector screen again, the one still showing the email with my name on it. A tiny line of metadata in the bottom corner pulsed like a heartbeat. Verified sender, time-stamped, authored. And when the judge finally turned to the defense and said, "Would you care to explain this discrepancy?" His voice was quieter than before, not out of uncertainty, but out of disappointment. Doug tried to answer first, fumbling for a legal pad he hadn't touched in 30 minutes. We had a revision protocol. The judge raised a hand. I didn't ask about your protocol. I asked if you can explain this timestamp. Greg opened his mouth and closed it again. Scott swallowed so hard you could hear it. I sat still, no pen in hand, no binder of rebuttals, just me, and the truth I never had to raise my voice to prove. They thought it would end in negotiation, a closed-door apology, a quiet settlement to make the storm go away. Instead, it ended with Maria sliding a single-page document across the table to the company's general counsel and saying, "This replaces the contract. Effective immediately." The courtroom hadn't even cleared when the client's legal team filed a formal withdrawal of their agreement with Altian Technologies. The language was surgical. Contract rescinded due to material misrepresentation and unauthorized alterations post-approval. No fluff, no ambiguity, just a kill switch in corporate speak. Within hours, I received an email. Not from the company, from Maria. The subject line was simple. Next steps. The message, "Your LLC still active?" Attached was a redlined draft of the agreement, my original structure, Clause 4B intact, with a new signature block. Mine. I didn't blink. I opened my business registration folder, pulled up the digital signature certificate, and replied within the hour. It's active, and I'm available. We signed the next morning. The ink wasn't even dry when Altian's legal team sent their olive branch, or what they thought passed for one. A back-channel request through a former colleague, something soft and transactional. There's interest in resolving this amicably. The company is prepared to offer a settlement to acknowledge your contributions and avoid further reputational damage. Their number was high, 6 figures. I didn't even finish reading the attachment. I wrote one line back. There's nothing to settle. The work already spoke. No counters, no threats, just the kind of silence that's loud enough to knock. By the end of the week, the board minutes leaked. 3 directors terminated. The language again was cold and clean. Separation due to compliance misrepresentation, failure to preserve document integrity, and breach of internal authorship protocol. Doug's name was first, then Greg, then Scott. Their badges were disabled before their inboxes finished syncing. Meanwhile, my new contract was already under execution. same deliverables, same rollout timeline. But now, the ownership sat where it always should have, under my LLC, with authorship traceable from the first draft to the signed deal. There was no partner to cut me out, no director to clean up the tone, no one to smirk over a pitch I wrote while they were sleeping. Just me. I didn't make a statement. I didn't tweet a thing. I didn't schedule a press release or reshare the headlines floating around LinkedIn. But I did update the terms of service on my company website. One clause. Plain text. Work for hire terms are conditional upon final authorship attribution. Ownership is retained unless explicitly transferred and acknowledged. I watched as 2 more companies, former clients, reached out to inquire about independent consultation. Suddenly, everyone remembered who had written the words that made millions. Funny how clear credit becomes when the courts read your name out loud. And funnier still how fast the directors vanished from the company's leadership page, scrubbed clean like the clause they thought wouldn't matter. But unlike their edits, I had proof. And this time, the metadata didn't just end a deal. It rewrote the hierarchy. The site was stark, intentionally, white background, black text, no animation, no sliders, no contact form, just one page. At the top, the headline sat alone, center-aligned in a bold sans serif font. 10 Maurers deal. One name missing. Guess whose? Beneath it, a redacted screenshot of the email. The sender, my name. The timestamp, June 6th, 12:47 a.m. The subject line, Final, Client Proposal for Review. The recipient and CC lines blurred just enough to keep it legal, but the details that mattered were untouched. Metadata fingerprints still glowing like a cold case, finally cracked open under fluorescent truth. It wasn't designed to go viral. It was designed to be undeniable. No pop-ups, no links, no pitch. Just the proof. The proof that I had written it. The proof that they tried to erase me, and the proof that I was never gone, just waiting in the source files. At the very bottom of the page, beneath a thin gray line, sat the only caption that mattered. Credit is earned in code. Ownership is proven in court. That was it. No blog, no TED Talk, no victory lap on Medium. Because when you win like this, you don't shout. You let the silence hum. The kind of silence that makes people reread the email 3 times. The kind of silence that makes recruiters send just-in-case messages at 2 a.m. The kind of silence that makes men in navy suits close their laptops without a word and stare at the floor while the rest of the company pretends nothing happened. There was no need for vengeance. They lost more than I ever could have taken from them. And me? I gained exactly what they said I didn't deserve. Authorship, visibility, and the last line on the page, the one they'll never be able to erase, written by my name, 2025.